Welcome to the Hearty podcast. I'm Beth, and for those of you who have been here before, welcome back. So grateful to have you. If you're new, I am Beth, as I mentioned, and on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the critical nature of self-love and specifically around self-acceptance, because self-love is the transformation. So I'm going to have all of us take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth and just release all of those anxieties, the to-do lists. You are going to close all of those internet tabs because we are here to reclaim our power. And part of reclaiming my power is getting this candle to light. It's like I will light for a second, but then not stay lit. But guess what? Just like in life, everything doesn't always go the right way or doesn't always go what we expect it, the way we expect it to go. But guess what? That's okay. So for those of you who don't know, this is my sweet baby puppy. You say hi, Maki. She is so curious about this candle. Look, let's put it over here so they can see your cute face. You say hi. So her name is Macchiato, and she goes by, I call her Maki, Makalaka, all the different things, right? So no, ma'am, you can't have that candle. Yep, let's put you over here. There we go. Okay. You're okay. I know. Huh? So we're going to do things like I did last time, where the first time I did this, although I definitely feel like it was successful because the whole purpose and that first episode was about facing my fears, specifically around like procrastination of starting this podcast, right? So we're going to continue with the path that we did last time, which is I have my handy dandy iPad. That doesn't rhyme. Got to figure out, if you have a suggestion of what that would sound like, my something iPad, I don't know what that would sound like to rhyme, but my handy dandy iPad in front of me so that I don't forget the critical things that I wanted to talk about. So in our last episode, we talked about healthy boundaries, and specifically boundaries with family, right? And how challenging it is to enforce those healthy boundaries, right? The biggest takeaway was that even if you know the process and everything, what has to happen first is you have to love yourself. You have to love yourself completely, which is why, again, I talk about how self-love is the transformation. So with specifically around self-love and acceptance, I want you to really focus on the fact that you have to love every single aspect of yourself, even the ugly parts. And I think when I say that, a lot of times it's really easy to think ugly as far as outward appearance and looks. I'm not saying I'm ugly, by the way. I think it's really easy for us to focus on those things that we don't like about ourselves physically, right? But the reality is, when I say ugly parts, I mean that thought that you had, that you're sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, I am so grateful that nobody heard me say that thought. Nobody heard that thought aloud, right? You can't hear thoughts aloud, but you get what I'm saying, right? So a few different things that we want to really think about with this is you got to move past that surface level, right? So I think a lot of times, one of the things that has been really big around self-love over the last several years has been mirror work, right? And affirmations and those things, right? And although that's part of it, right? Absolutely, repetition is important. I will tell you from personal life experience, that's not all there is to it. And that's not how that works completely, right? So the biggest thing is to truly learn to love yourself and accept every aspect of yourself, right? So for instance, when I first started doing mirror work, like most of us, I would stand in front of the mirror and I would look at myself and I would tell myself all the things that I love myself, that I am beautiful, that I'm all of these different things, right? And what happened was I didn't have heart-brain coherence. And as a result, yes, I was hearing it. However, what was happening is my brain was going, no, you're not. You don't believe that. That's not true. Right. And so it's very critical to get down to the bottom of what that looks like. Right. So one of the things that I always think of when it comes to this is it reminds me of my personal journey with self-love and acceptance. Hi, Smiley. Are you a happy girl? it really, really, truly started about my mid 30s. And at this point in my life, I was at my heaviest. And clear up until that point in my life, I would literally look in the mirror and pick myself apart. It didn't matter how skinny I was. It didn't matter what the number said on the scale. It didn't matter what number my clothes were. It didn't matter what I looked like. It didn't matter how many people told me that I was beautiful and all of these things. And I was a pageant queen, and I had a modeling contract, and I had all of these different things. None of that mattered, because the reality is it all comes down to you. Your perspective is reality. That's all there is to it. And so I'm sure every single one of us can think of, she just moved my iPad with her nose. This cute little nose. Yes, cute little squirrel. I think every single one of us can think of times throughout our lives when, from an outward perspective, right, it appeared that we had everything, right? And I think those were actually some of the lowest points in my life, when I had the relationship that looked so beautiful on the outside. I was the weight that was acceptable. I had the job that everybody wanted. I had, right? But the reality was I wasn't happy, because no one and nothing externally is what makes you happy. Happiness is a choice. And when we think about self-love and self-acceptance, no matter where you are at, you've got to dive into truly whatever that trauma is, right? So I do have on my Amazon storefront, which if you go to soulhearty.com, there is a link to that. I do have some books that I utilize that really helped me with that. If you really, really want to deep dive into it, you are so cute, little stinker. I think the biggest thing, though, that I want to talk about is that it really has nothing to do with your outward experience, right? It's all about your inward and how you feel about yourself. Because the reality is, it was when I was at my heaviest weight, when I felt like I was at my lowest in my life, that's when I truly started the healing, because I didn't value myself. And I had to really dig deep and remind myself that it didn't matter about my looks, my weight, any of that, right? And so, like many of us, I started out with those affirmations. I started out with that mirror work. I started out with all of that, right? But because of the fact that I didn't take the time to do the deep healing to learn that it's okay that I feel these different ways, it's okay that I had that thought, no matter how ugly it is, it's okay. Until I did that deep healing, I didn't believe any of that. And I didn't believe that I was beautiful. And I didn't believe that I was of worth, right? So I had to first and foremost do the deep healing. And I actually, along the way, I went down the spiral, got lost, went down a rabbit hole, all the different free things that are out there on the internet. And the reality is, it kind of worked. So it worked to an extent for a short amount of time. But then what happened is, then something would happen in life and I would get triggered. And because neurons that fire together wire together, I would be right back in that place of trauma. And then I'd get mad at myself, because I would have a negative thought about myself. I would be mad that I fell back, like, oh, I went backward. I'm supposed to be going forward and I went backward. And I would get so mad at myself. And at one point, I had recorded affirmations and things, and I would literally play them in my ear, thinking, repetition, repetition. I just need to convince myself that I feel these things. And all it did was make things worse. Because then what happened is, I was literally full on scolding myself when I had a thought that I didn't think was okay. And so I use this as an example to really help to get the message out there that there are bits and pieces that are out there that are accurate. And obviously everybody's journey, you're so stinking cute. She's a happy girl too, huh? Say, I choose to be happy. You're so cute. There are bits and pieces out there that are accurate, right? But the thing that I think is missing so much in a lot of the education is that you can be taught all of the things to do, but you have to do that work, right? So if we go back to my first episode of facing your fears, that's healing that trauma. It's scary. It is terrifying. I had moments where I would be trying to work through something and it was too much and I had to stop and I couldn't because I was literally curled up in a ball, shaking, all the things, right? Those are normal parts of us working through the trauma. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned throughout that whole process too is, again, back to that acceptance, right? I like to think about it from the perspective of if you have a child, if you're a parent, or if you even just think back to when you were a child and what you would have liked, what is the difference between a parental figure that scolds you and gets mad at you? Oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Oh, that's stupid. Oh, that's versus a parental figure that says, you know what? Of course you're angry. Of course you're angry. Anyone who experienced that would be angry. It's okay that you're angry. Let's talk about that. What about it made you angry? Let's get those feelings out. Right? And I think for me and my personal life and my growth and my healing and everything, one of the best things that I ever did for myself, because you don't just go to a therapy session and one and done, you're healed. That's not how that works, right? That's where that repetition comes in. But the repetition is different. The repetition is, I'm going to take some time. I'm going to sit with myself. I'm going to allow myself to feel those feelings, whatever that looks like. And then I'm going to accept that it's okay that that's how I feel. And then I'm going to comfort myself like a 5-year-old child. So back to that whole, like, what would you tell your child? Or what would you have wanted someone to tell you, right? So never on earth would I tell my child the horrible, judgmental thoughts that I had about myself. At one point, I was full on scolding myself, like I said. How dare you have, that's stupid. Why would you think about that? But those are the thoughts that we have about ourselves. And this is why we struggle with so many things. Everything. Self-love is the transformation. You want to uphold healthy boundaries? Self-love. Got to love yourself because you got to know that you can deserve it. You want to have the career that you want? Self-love, because you got to know that speaking up for yourself and how to do that in a kind, authoritative manner, like, you need to be able to know how to do that. You need to know that it's okay to go after it. You need to not worry about imposter syndrome, which many of us have, right? You do deserve to have that career that you want. You do deserve to have that home that you want, that relationship that you want, that whatever that looks like. But self-love is the transformation. And that starts with you learning to accept yourself, right? So, and I know obviously that deep healing, it's hard. And one of my favorite analogies that I had my Reiki practitioner actually who certified me shared with me, and I loved it, is that whole that healing is like an onion, healing your trauma. You peel back a layer, there's more. You peel back a layer. Healing doesn't happen in just one quick thing, right? But again, it's that self-love, that acceptance, right? And so I would challenge you, first of all, I would love to know in the comments, what is one thing that you're going to do for yourself over this next week to truly love and accept yourself exactly the way you are? Not once I hit a certain weight, not once I make so much money, not once I clean up this thing, nope. Once I finish the book, whatever, doesn't matter. What are you going to do right now for yourself to truly demonstrate to yourself that you love yourself and that you accept yourself? And maybe it's something as simple as, like I was saying, you have that thought where you're just mean to yourself. Our personal dialogue, that is the strongest beyond anyone and everything else. That's why you can literally, from an outside perspective, have everything that you love and want and desire and still be 100% miserable and not be happy because of the fact that you don't love yourself. And self-love truly is that transformation, right? So I would challenge you, tell me what's the one thing you're going to do this week for yourself to show that self-love, that acceptance, right? And then the other thing I want you to do is I want you to truly consider, and again, to this day, when I talk about this, I know it sounds crazy, but you know what? It works. When I have a thought that I am not 100% happy about, I am triggered, whatever that looks like, I literally just allow myself to feel those feelings, whatever they are. I allow them to come out in whatever form they need to. Now, obviously not negative, abusive towards someone else, right? But I go and I'll sit in my room by myself and I will literally just ask aloud the question of, what are you feeling? And I allow those emotions to just come over me. I allow them to release. Once it's done, I literally say aloud, like I said, it's okay. It's okay that you're hurt. I would be hurt too. That's okay. But you know what? I'm here for you and I'm not going anywhere and I got your back. So I truly, truly encourage you to find ways to love and accept yourself. So I'm doing a new thing with my podcast where I'm giving a free companion guide. So check out the link for the free companion guide that goes with this episode of self-love and self-acceptance. And I also, for my podcast listeners, I am offering this week only, I am offering a 25% off to anyone who shops on my website, soulhearty.com. Again, the link's in the comment or in the description here. Shop on my soulhearty.com. And if you purchase something to work with me, so if you purchase the Ritualist Intention, and oh my goodness, the Ritualist Intensive with me, which is a 60-minute one-on-one with me, I only open up 3 spots per week. This week, if you schedule it, and you can use the code on my website, Soul Hearty Pod, P-O-D for podcast, you'll get 25% off. So please subscribe, follow, like, comment. I really want this to be something. Come along with me on this journey. I hope you all know this is very healing for me because it reminds me all of those things that maybe I forgot to be putting into practice every day, So I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for joining. Follow, subscribe, check out my links for the free companion guide. And I am anxious to know what's that one thing that you're going to do for yourself to show up for you. What is that? Because self-love is the transformation. Bye, lovelies.